Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is right at the top of the hour, and we are sending you greetings from the qualified. And we thank you so much for joining us for our very first Brunch and Learn of 2024. Everyone, my name is Japera Denson, and I will be serving as your host today. And whether you are live with us or you're watching this on demand, we are so glad to have you in our audience. We welcome you to a fresh and hopeful new year. So thank you so much for being with us, everyone. Now, for those of you who are live, we encourage you to use our chat feature. Please use the chat feature throughout the presentation to engage with our presenter and also to ask questions. So let's get started now, okay? We're going to do a little exercise just to get us warmed up today. For those of you who are able, please type in the chat where you're joining from and what your current role is in the HIM profession. So where you're joining from and what your current role is, okay? So a little bit of information here about the qualified to get us going. Just in case you do not know, the qualified is here to serve you in a variety of ways. We want to provide continuing educational opportunities for you. We provide tutoring. We also provide online courses, certification, exam preparation. We help with job placement. We also help employers to recruit experienced and or credentialed or valuable and needed HIM professionals. And there's so much more that we do. So just check out our website down at the bottom of the screen that's showing right now. Our website is listed. It's www.the-qualified.com. Okay, so check us out. Now, today's Brunch and Learn is going to be an absolute treat. So joining us with an update of what to expect with ICD-10, excuse me, no, not ICD-10, but ICD-11. She's going to give us some updates. Joining us today is Michelle Bador. Michelle is a global clinical and nosology content manager at 3M Health Information Systems. She leads an international team of professionals who focus on the clinical development of coding and also regulatory standards and the social drivers of health programs for 3M's HIS. Now, Michelle is coming to us. She's joining us today with more than 20 years, 2 decades, okay, of healthcare technology experience. And she has worked in various inpatient, various outpatient settings. She's also a former chief information officer. So let us welcome at this time, everyone, Miss Michelle Bador. Michelle, welcome to the Brunch and Learn stage. It's all
Thank
yours,
you.
friend.
Thank you so much. My experience makes me feel older than I am. So thanks everyone for welcoming. This is a great opportunity to speak with you today. And I'm excited about ICD-11. I hope that it doesn't cause you guys anxiety, but it does for some people. So it really is exciting. I think it'll be much better. So thank you for having me today. And I guess let's dive in. So here's a little bit about me. Japera, thank you for that warm welcome. This is everything that was there. So next slide, please. So today we'll have a couple objectives. Hopefully you'll learn a lot. Who, what, where, why, how we're going to do this. Talk about the code mechanics, code types, and the workflows that'll be affected. Talk about some education and awareness that you can do to get ready, while the country itself is deciding what and how we'll do about it. And then, just getting ready for your organization or yourself to be ready to mitigate any risks or get ready for the conversion. Next slide. Thank you. Okay, let's sit with this one for a while. So this is a big thing here. This is a cluster code. This is what ICD-11 will look like. So I just want to sit with this a moment. You'll notice some special characters, a string of codes. It's very different than ICD-10-CM that we have here. So yes, wow. Next slide, please. Okay, so ICD-11 is coming. WHO has released, they do each year in February. It was this year, I'm sorry, February 2023. I keep forgetting we're on 2024 already. The latest release included feature releases, improvements to the tooling, additional language support, and will help all the global areas get ready for ICD-11. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this is a femur fracture, and this is that long string that we were looking at earlier. This is what it looks like in 10, and this is what it will look like in 11. You can see the red there, that's the basis stem codes, and then the gray are the additional information, laterality, things like that, and those are extension codes. So things will look different. Something like Alzheimer's will right now is a G30. It will be 8A20. So I think gone are the days where we spend coder time trying to memorize codes. They'll all change. So next slide. Thank you. So ICD-11 comes with a package and different components published by World Health Organization, WHO. There's a coding tool, there's a browser, there's API, that's a technical thing. We'll talk a little bit more through that. We can do Google-like searches, diagnostic phrases, so you can just put like diabetic retinopathy due to type 2 diabetes. You can type that in and it'll code for you. There's a lot more chapter and index entries, the ability to code up to millions of terms. This is why we're not going to be able to remember these codes. And when they came up with the package and the components, WHO surveyed all kinds of roles, scientists, clinicians, providers, translators. They accepted up to 900 different proposals to come up with this ICD-11 package that we have. Next slide, please. So, okay, who? Exactly, who? WHO is the who's causing this, or helping us transition here. So right now there are 64 different countries in different stages of implementation. There's expanded language support now. You can go to their site, and for us it's /EN for English, but there's support in the tool and the browser and the API for all different languages. They're always expanding more languages because their goal is to have everyone on one classification system. Let's do this one more time, get everyone on ICD-11 so we don't have to have an ICD-12. Slide. So here's the why. Right now, ICD-10 is nearly 30 years old. Of course, we didn't adopt it 30 years ago in the US, but it is old, it's outdated. ICD-11 is more flexible, more detailed, better reporting, different technologies, different support for, say, traditional medicine, different cancer staging. We'll talk a little bit more through that. So reporting and payment, everything will be better with ICD-11. And as I talk through this, note that it's just for diagnosis that we're talking about. It's WHO's diagnosis, like ICD-10, CPT, PCS, all of that is not maintained by WHO. So that will not be part of the discussion today, just diagnosis coding. Next slide, thank you. So why else? Right now, there's different use cases that we can have, pain documentation, data dictionaries, whose guidelines. Also, there's additional support for other use cases like cancer staging, a lot more support for maternal coding, mental health, other use cases that we don't have great support for right now in ICD-10. Next slide. So how will we do this? Right now, we're going from this code book, the alphabetic index, finding that main or lead term, and moving through the tabular to find the code. If you could expand out this slide, thank you. So we'll move to an ICD-11 coding tool. There's not going to be a published book. You can search for a diagnosis or condition with that tool. And here is the coding tool. So it's a coding tool and a browser published by WHO. They've also provided, like I mentioned, an API that is for like system development, maybe the coding vendors, or if you're a large hospital system and you have your own IT department, this would be something perhaps that they would be interested in. Most likely for most people, it'll be integrated from your 3M partners, your vendor partners. Sorry, that was an unnecessary, unexpected plug for 3M. It may be in the 3M tool or other vendor tools. I don't know, Epic, Cerner, some of your EMR vendors. So you can see here, you have a dynamic phrase search, much like a Google-like search. You can search on a destination entity, and on the right, we have the hierarchy view, and that's more like the tabular that we're used to. Next slide, please. So here's another way to use that coding tool, another view of it. So if you type in upper respiratory infection, you can see here the exact match comes through. It will be highlighted in blue. You can see the parent-child relationship here, so where this falls with its destination entity. And there is a default sort. It is matching score, so how the code tool thinks you're looking for, this is the high score will come up on top. You do have the ability, though, to change your sort to different options that will put you, say, in chapter order or whatever. There's a drop down there for it, so you can change. It's a pretty powerful tool the way it's provided from WHO. So when, this is a question everyone asks. This is something we have for the markets that we're active in at 3M. So right now, Kuwait is up and live. 1 to 3 years, we have some other countries, 4 to 7 years, there's a bulk there with a bunch of countries who follow Australia's coding standards and DRG systems. And then 7+ years are places like the US and countries who follow our guidelines. We have some other markets, we're not really sure where they're entering. One thing important to note here is this is when we expect those countries to step off into implementation, not saying they'll be complete with implementation. So as we look to Australia and Canada and other areas who have done some field testing and done some more planning with their governing bodies, we're expecting it will be a several-year implementation timeline from when we step off to when we are fully implemented. Next slide, please. So yes, what about the US? When will we be ready here? So we just sort of moved to ICD-10 CM, which was 30 years old. So we're a little behind. We take a little more careful approach, I guess. So the NCVHS, they've established a work group to look at this for ICD-11 conversion. They published 2 RFIs, requests for information. One was last summer, I think it was August, and they published maybe June in the summer. And then they just published another RFI in October with responses due, I think, last week. So what they're looking to get or gather from these RFIs is what does everyone need for implementation? Which format should we use? What are the concerns in the electronic tools? The forms that we use to file our codes on, things like this. What kind of support and training will we need? And will we accept ICD-11 MMS as it is published by WHO, or will we need our own CM, our own conversion? WHO is, of course, looking for us to minimize those. You know, we have one in the US, there's a clinical modification in Australia and Germany and Korea, all over. So they're hoping that we can all just use ICD-11 as it is and extend it for any needs that we may have specific to our regions. Next slide, please. Thank you. So ICD-11 is a precursor to 10, precursor to 9. So let's kind of look at this, where we're going. So ICD-9 For inpatient and outpatient, we have our own CM. We had about 13,000 codes. We moved to 10, our own, again, clinical modification there, 74,000 codes. When we get to ICD-11, it explodes. We have the ability to code millions and millions of terms. For PCS, we're not really looking at that right now, but you can see from ICD-9 to ICD-10, there was, quite an amplification of the number of codes. And again, my talk today, it's a ICD-11 will transition from ICD-10 CM, not procedures, just diagnosis in scope for this. So next slide. Oh, okay. Well, that popped in late. Sorry. So there's some structure changes, as we noted from that first slide, right? The first character is alphanumeric, and second and third are numeric. The third to 7 characters, having a decimal after the third. Right now, we have no special characters, and we will have special characters, especially with our clustering. We'll have ampersands and forward slashes. Right now, it's not case sensitive. It remains not case sensitive, thankfully, but we will get better support for the L and the I confusion, the 0 and the O confusion. So there won't be L's or I's, no zeros or O's. So we know exactly what we're looking at, thankfully. Next slide. So there are now 6 new chapters, and right now we have Arabic numbers. Sorry, right now we have Roman numerals, and we'll be going to Arabic numbers. The coding scheme will also change. So the chapter numbering, like I just mentioned, now Arabic, not Roman numerals. The first character of the code will always equal the chapter. The coding schemes for the coding categories, there's a minimum of 4 characters. There's different subcategories, and some diseases change locations. The coding scheme always has a letter in the second position. Again, no L's or I's or zeros or O's. And there's several new chapters, like immune system, sleep-wake disorders, things like that. Excellent. Thank you. So there was a study done, National Institutes of Medicine, so they did several studies, maybe 3. The latest one they found, they looked at ICD-10 and how we moved from 9 to 10 and what they expect us to see in ICD-11 and the move from 10 to 11. So you can look this up. The source of the study is there. The papers are there. What they're finding, though, is that we're going to be better off with the move from ICD-10 to ICD-11 than we were from 9 to 10. So there's a lot of facts, a lot of stats here. The paper is a great paper, a lot of research, but basically the message is don't be so anxious about this change. So let's talk about the different code types. This is important to learn and to be able to articulate through ICD-11 changes. So there's 2 types of codes. There's a STEM code and an extension code. So the STEM codes are those core diagnostic codes. We can always add more detail to them. They're always positioned first when we do the clustering, and they start with numbers or letters, but they never start with X. Next slide. So X is retained for extension codes. You can't use these alone. They are only adding meaning to that STEM code. They extend on things like laterality, severity, location. Also, they're used as descriptors. So this is where we're going to find our POA, discharge diagnosis type, things like that. These will be extension codes. Next slide, please. So when you put the STEM code and the extension code together, it's called cluster coding or post coordination. So when we have 2 STEM codes to put together, we put a slash in between them. And then when we have a STEM code with more information on it, extending it, we use an ampersand. So here's an example. We have that main STEM code there, DA63, and then we have more extensions for that, and they're added with that ampersand. So cluster coding also, there are cases where it's mandatory and cases where it's optional. So if you're looking up a code like this diabetic cataract here, and sorry if it's too small, if you see a red plus, that means it's mandatory. Post coordination must happen. It is something that needs more detail. If you see a gray plus, that's optional. You can always add more extension codes or get that post coordination done to a different level, but it's not necessary. And if you look here at the bottom, diabetic cataract due to type 2 diabetes, if you type the whole thing rather than just diabetic cataract and with detail that you have, it will post coordinate it for you. So instead of it just finding the stem code, it will find a stem code and it's got additional detail here for it. And that's what that little star I put on the screen. So you can see the more information you put, the better the tool can do for you. So more information on cluster coding or post coordination, some examples. When you do this in the tool, you can see here, there's different results in different colors. So black means that the parent is right above. It's a certainty, like this is a child of this parent. If you see gray entities, this is something that's associated with the condition above it, but it is not a direct parent. It lives somewhere else. It has a different primary parent. And then red is things like other and unspecified, and this is not a change here. That's the same as it is with ICD-10. Another important factor in ICD-11 are these URIs, or unique resource identifiers. You won't need to know this as coding CDI. This is just something that refers to a specific place in that foundation. This entity lives here. So for me, I work in St. Augustine, Florida. St. Augustine has a different GPS location for the town. Say I have coworkers who don't work in the same office as me. They're in a home location across town or the north side, west side of town. They, for their home offices, will have a different GPS coordinate, but will all still be maintaining or conglomerated in St. Augustine. So this is like a unique resource identifier has here. So if we look at different, the parent of disorders due to use of alcohol, that is analogous to St. Augustine, Florida. It's the parent. And the conditions that are lower, they have a different URI, but still are related to that parent. So just think of it as GPS coordinates, not something you need to know to drive. The URIs aren't something you need to know to code. Just know that they're there, like pointers. So these URIs, again, they point to a specific code and location in the foundation. Your code will never change, like your GPS coordinate. They're never going to just change, say 73 to 29. That's not going to change. Not all codes have a URI. So some codes with rare diseases only, oh, I said that backwards. Not all URIs have a code. So it will live in the foundation. It may not have a code associated with it yet. It's too rare. There's not enough usage for it. So only the most common ones have a code. So looking at the foundation and the tabular, so the foundation contains, like a foundation would, different entities. So it has ICD for ICD-11, it has ICF, it has ECHI for procedures, different entities. It's all created, linearizations created from that main foundation. And different tabulars, again, like linearizations, can be made from that foundation. So we have several coming from that. Think of the foundation as a foundation for a home. It's everything. You can have, walls, you can have a roof, you can have different things. So ICD-11 has different tabulars related to it. What we talk about most likely, most of the time, mortality and morbidity. So ICD-11 MMS. There are other ones out there, verbal autopsy, startup mortality lists, different things. What we will most commonly deal with is ICD-11 MMS, and that would refer to ICD-11 as WHO has published. So they published this foundation and they want everyone to collaborate on extending this or making this the best it can so we don't have to have an ICD-12. So this is an open public platform and anybody can, you or I, can create an ID and ask for a code to be created, a revision made. It's an open public platform. Like I said, everybody, any country, any role, we all can submit a proposal. So these proposals go in, they look at them ongoing. The foundation itself is updated daily. This is something that, you know, they're always taking proposals, considering them. They have different committees based on what kind of information is being changed or added. And then they update the MMS, that linearization, that tabular, annually. And this is what I was referring to earlier. The last 2 years, it has been done in February, so we would expect that it will be done soon. So every country will look at this and see what they want to implement or how they want to implement it. They have to figure out when, like the US, do we adopt this now because it's out? Do we adopt this 5 years from now after we've taken care of the training and implementation, the standards, the electronic tools, the interoperability? And do we accept it as it is, like ICD-11 MMS, or do we have to make our own national modification? So we have ICD-11 CM. This all has to be determined. So impacts and risks. So here we have the pre-auth phone call. So back in September 2013, the pre-authorization phone call looks like this, the level of detail that's there. That next day, if you can extend that slide, please. Thank you. That next day, we're on ICD-10. So it looks different. Mr. Smith's diagnosis has a little more detail in it, and his code has changed that's been associated with that. And then one more click, please. So on some future date, we don't know when this will happen. This pre-auth phone call may not even be a phone call. It may be, you know, electronic. It may be some other form of communication, but Mr. Smith's disease now has a lot more detail in it, and the code also contains a lot more detail. So I wouldn't want to be calling, saying these words and reading this code out. So hopefully it'll be done electronically. Someone can just copy paste, or it's integrated in some tool. So that's one workflow that will change with this transition to ICD-11. And we have other, so another one here, the coding workflow. This is that femur fracture again. You see that, you know, the code and how it looks different from ICD-10 to ICD-11. It's not just that same code with more extensions on it. The code itself, or that stem code, that basis of that fracture, has changed. There's another example here of the coding workflow. So looking at not, you know, the same condition, different condition, we have that left diabetic cataract due to diabetes here, what it looked like in ICD-9, what it looked like in ICD-10 CM, and what it will look like in ICD-11. Again, this is, you know, as published by WHO. We don't know what we're doing with it, if we're going to have a ICD-11 CM here or not, but you can just see here the change. Another workflow that may change, CDI here. So the end result is going to look different. CDI needs to kind of talk through and get the right information on POA. So right now in POA, I'm sure you all know this, it's a yes, no, unknown, or we can't determine. POAs in ICD-11, the codes are different. So there's present on admission, developed after, or the timing is uncertain. We don't know when that onset happened. Or so the codes itself, it won't be a Y or an N, it'll be a 4-character extension code. You know this because it starts with X, so you know it's an extension code, not a stem code. Other workflows and use cases. So it's going to affect just about all the different systems and people and documents, everything that that we have in budgets and and case mix, performance management, value-based care, all of everything that relies on codes right now will likely change. It will affect perhaps contracts with insurers and payers for different hospital organizations or, provider organizations too, not just hospitals. And next slide, please. So there'll be challenges for just about every department in the healthcare system. A good opportunity to get more detail. Perhaps we get off of some spreadsheets we have to monitor additional details or some other systems we've built to get to the level of detail we need for accreditation or reporting requirements. Everything should be built into ICD-11, and using those extension codes, we can drill down to data. You can see how many conditions over across the conditions using POA, or you can see to show me everybody who's came in who has, I don't know, diabetic retinopathy. Like we can see it because we're reporting on it. We have that level of detail with all the extension codes. So there are improvements. It's not just challenges, but good opportunities also. Next slide. So where can you learn more? There's a lot of educational references. So this is one slide with some links in it. So this is organized. It looks kind of busy, sorry. On the left side is WHO's training. So they have 15 units with questions on how you can learn more about the different chapters and ICD-11 in general. They also have on their website different specialty things, like the latest one out there is for chronic pain. You can see an adaptation for that. AHIMA has a course on ICD-11 with some questions. That's linked there. This one does have a fee. They have some free on-demand webinars. They have information on their global conferences. This one's from 22. I know there were several on the AHIMA 23 also. More towards the middle here, we have links from Canada. They're doing a lot of webinars. IFHIMA, they also have a lot of webinars and posters out there. Moving more right, the CDC has some. There is in the bottom of the right, there is a series of YouTube videos published by Kuwait, who was live. These are really good YouTubes. They're at a more basic level. They make it fun. Dr. Ibrahim there has created this series for education for her country and has shared it internationally. I'd suggest starting with those. They make it fun. It's real easy to understand. Next slide. So getting ready. Next slide after that. So how should you get ready? So it may seem like we're going to do this way far into the future, but getting a leg up on change is always good. While we have the time to work on this now, just to get it familiar. So go to more meetings like this, read blogs. There's information in trade shows. We did a webinar for HC Pro. We have an Inside Angle blog that we often update with ICD-11 information, or go to WHO's website. I have a link here again for English because that's what we're talking through today. The education, like I just mentioned, WHO's training, there's 15 modules there to learn more in detail. AHIMA has training. The IFHIMA site, AAPC, I'm just Googling it in general, getting ready for ICD-11, however you type in your phrase. Talk to your vendor partners, professional associations, websites, and organizations like the Qualified. You're going to get support for this. It's not something, we're all going to be doing on our own. So feel supported. On the first slide is a link to my LinkedIn. If you want to connect there, have any questions, I'd be glad to answer. And today, open it up for any questions. And let me check the chat.
Yeah, so I'm looking, actually, we do have a question in the chat. Um, and it's from Raquel. Raquel is asking, will we be able to get our hands on this training reference and resource information? Particularly, are you talking about the presentation, Raquel? Or are you talking about something that Michelle provided specifically in her presentation? The page that was titles?
Maybe 2 slides back. Is that what you're looking for? The references and training materials? One more. That one? Is that what you're looking for? Okay. Good.
Okay.
So does the qualified send out the slides? Because they're all linked. If not, we can send this one slide. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I think we'll be able to provide this page to those who have attended today. I absolutely think that's possible. Yeah, for sure. So, okay, Raquel, we will be sending it out to you. Dr. Sabri says that her mind is blown with the character string. That whole character string did it for her. Same thing for me in the very beginning of your presentation, coming out of the bag with that. I'm like, oh my goodness, that is a whole lot.
I like to start with this. The answer is not retirement. This is what I hear so much. They're like, when are we doing this? Because I want to retire. And I like to break it down, hit you with that string first, because I mean, a femur fracture is not an uncommon thing, but this is what it could look like. So just sit with it a minute, get used to it, and then we'll break it down and we'll see really it's not that bad. And there's a lot of information we can pull from this. So I hope that I hope I got you there and you're not as anxious as what you were when you first saw that.
You definitely help break it down. And I mean, I think that you training and of course others, across the world will be providing trainings on this to help smooth us into the transition of using this platform, this classification system. But definitely a lot of training is going to be needed, right? Because people are freaked out by that. Oh my goodness. So I'm looking, let's see here. How soon should academic programs begin getting ready for ICD-11?
I get out my crystal ball. Let's see. I don't know. I'm kind of guessing. Yes, yes, I see the excitement in the comments. Yes. Um, I would say I would say we still have a little time. What I would say is that right now, because the US has, the regulatory bodies looking at it to make recommendations, are we going to look at ICD-11 itself as is, or are we going to be recommended to make our own clinical modification? If we make a CM, the codes will change. So we don't want to get education too far up front, but want to be familiar with the basic concepts. So maybe an intro course, like this is what's going on, this is what it looks like, but not knowing how we will implement here in the US, the detailed training may not be applicable if we modify it for our nation.
Okay, wonderful. So let's look here. It looks like a lot of good stuff going on in the chat. So I'm just gonna I'm just gonna scroll through the chat. Okay, I don't know. Let's see. Let me just read this out. Raquel says our EHR is through a company in Canada called Point Click Care, and she is wondering if that will quicken some of the implementation.
I would say with the ability and that WHO has provided in that API, the application programming interface, it does make it easier. I know that when I spoke to Malaysia and Korea, both of their ministries of health, their IT departments relied heavily on that API available. So it's kind of integrating whatever front end tool you have for coding and CDI with WHO's coding tool that I showed. So it makes it integrated so that if a code shows up, a new code for, I don't know, hangnail shows up, it will be in your coding tool because it will be provided through that API. So I think it will make it implementation quicker on the IT side because they have provided this API.
That's great. That's wonderful. Let's see, let me keep looking here. Okay, so I have a question actually, because sometimes we have people in our audience that are new professionals. Sometimes we have students in the audience. And I am curious, Michelle, because the work that you're doing is really unique and very instrumental to the operation and like revenue cycle and just the whole operations of healthcare. How did you particularly get into this HIM space?
That's a great question. So when I grew up, I came up through the IT side. So that was always my focus. And whew, let me see, my gosh, maybe 20 years ago, I changed from pure IT into like healthcare IT. So it started to resonate with me that I can help with healthcare, which is, you know, something that I find my personal purpose with, like using technology to improve health. And I'm just I love it. Some of my other work, like you mentioned, Japera, early is in social determinants of health. Again, I feel like this close connection to using IT to help improve health, like all over, getting people equitable care, getting us all on the same reporting system. Because what do we know if the US is reporting on codes and we have this stuff for just say diabetes, our codes are this. And diabetes in Canada, they have a different code set, and Australia, a different code set, and Germany, same thing. We're not using this IT foundation as good as we could be doing for reporting globally. So this is when this came out, and this was something that we needed to look at. Being my employer 3M, we're active in the healthcare space with systems. So I'm like, we need to start looking at this. So I just raised my hand. I'm like, this is all me. I want in on this. So I hope that answered your question.
It
Personal,
does.
yeah,
Yeah, that's very exciting. That's fun. And it's great that you had the opportunity to see an area
yes,
that you wanted to target and work in. And then your employer gave you the floor or gave you that space to put
yes,
your hands on it.
yes,
Yeah,
blessing.
that
Yes,
is a blessing. Absolutely.
yeah.
So let's see. I don't see any other questions, particularly in the chat. Is there any final information that you'd like to leave with our audience for today, Michelle?
Yes. Remain excited, not anxious. And reach out anytime. Honestly, I love to talk about this, as you probably see from my demeanor here. But yes, always answering questions or adding more information as I can.
Wonderful. And can folks follow you or connect with you on LinkedIn?
Please,
Or
yes.
okay, great. So please do connect with Michelle, everyone, on the LinkedIn platform, and they can find you right at Michelle Bador, right?
Yep.
As the name at okay.
Yep.
Michelle Bador, connect with Michelle, please, if you are on LinkedIn, and connect with the qualified as
Yes.
well. We have our handles, our social media handles here on the screen. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, we are on Instagram. If you like IG, we're on IG Live. No, I don't think we're on IG Live yet, but we do IG, okay? We do Instagram. And then of course, YouTube is a platform as well that we use to stay connected. We really want to help build community in the HIM space and then provide HIM professionals with the tools and the resources that they need to get the certifications that they want, to land the jobs that they want. For even employers, we want to help them hire folks who are qualified to work in the HIM, in their HIM departments or in their HIM capacities and vacancies that they have. HIM professionals play an important role in the grand scheme of healthcare and just the global movement of health and medicine and wellness. And so we want to make sure that we allow people to have what they need, the tools that they need in order to be successful in this career. I do want to invite everyone who is on the call right now to our brunch and learn for February. So our February brunch and learn will be on February 15th, which is a Thursday. at 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. We are Eastern time. And next month's Brunch and Learn is going to feature Noelle Dell Brown. She's going to be speaking about leadership. So the title of her presentation is Leading from Within, Unveiling the Heartbeat of Purpose and Values. We really, really hope that you will join us next month. If you are already tuned in or following the Qualified, then you will receive emails and notifications of what we have coming up so that you can register. And we certainly hope that you will share this information with your colleagues and others in the profession so that they can get CEUs and learn and connect and collaborate as well. Now, for those who are in our audience, if you are interested in presenting at a future Brunch and Learn, I want you to reach out to me directly at events@thequalified.com. You can send me an email and let me know what your topic of choice is, what your expertise is, and just how interested you are in presenting for our audience. Everyone, that is all that we have for you today. We want to say thank you so much for joining us for this first Brunch and Learn of 2024. We're going to continue the education. We are going to continue the excitement, and we're going to continue learning and gleaning from one another. So please join us next month and stay tuned. Everyone have an awesome top of the day. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, everyone.